In the previous lesson, we have moved all the logic related to the routing into a separate module called router.js, which means all those components that need to use routing logic, for example, to redirect to a particular page. They can easily import all necessary parts from the router.js module to do this navigation, instead of firing custom events to let the root component know when it needs to execute certain logic to navigate to a different page. So currently we have a couple of links inside of the header, and when clicking on those links, we are redirected to different pages, as well as we have links to all the pages within our navigation component at the bottom of the page. And of course, when we click on the our labels on the timeline page, we are scrolled to a particular timeline item components. And additionally, when we click on the logo, we are scrolled to current timeline item. So currently all this navigation is happening within the root component. But we can actually simplify this process, so we're not gonna need to listen for navigate event on some components and execute navigation logic within the root component. If we switch over to this component, we can see a couple of event listeners for click events that are responsible to handle cases when we click on the logo, as well as on that link on the right side of the navigation. So we are emitting custom event navigate to let the parent component know when it needs to change page. But actually right now firing this custom event is not necessary, because navigation should happen directly within the header component, because we can easily import that function responsible for navigation inside of router.js module, which is this navigate function. So we can import it directly within the header component, which we're going to do right now. And instead of firing navigate event to the root component, we're gonna call directly function navigate, and this function expects page name, which it should be redirected to. So we're also supplying the page name as a first parameter to this function. We're doing this for the logo component, as well for the header progress, because we have two links inside of the navigation by clicking on which we should be redirected. In the first case, we're gonna be redirected to the timeline page, and in the second case, to the progress page. And now that we have removed the code which fires custom event navigate, there is no need for this define emits macro in this component. Let's remove this code. As well as that validation function is page valid. So going back to the app component, and we no longer need to listen for navigate event from the header component. We can also easily remove this directive. And just to make sure everything's working as before, let's go ahead and try clicking on the links in the header. And we see that we are being properly redirected to the progress and timeline pages. So this part is working. And now what about our navigation? We're gonna apply the same technique to call navigate function directly from within the now component to switch between different pages. But besides handling navigate event, as we can see, the now component also accepts one prop which holds name of the current page. And by the way, the name of the current page we can also get from the router module, so there is no need to pass it directly as a prop. So first of all, let's take care about navigate event, and this event gets fired when we click on one of the navigation links, as we can see in here. So let's replace this event with function call to navigate function, like so. And of course, as a first parameter, we need to pass page name we'd like to be navigated to. So now, as in the header component, we also no longer need this define emits macro, we can remove this. And to be able to call navigate function from within this component, this function should be imported from the router module. Let's write down an import for navigate function in here. And now back to the current page prop that holds current page name, which is currently passed from the root component. But as was said before, we can get access to the current page variable by explicitly importing it from the router module. So there is no need anymore to accept this prop within the now component. Let's remove this prop declaration, as well as validation function is page valid. And we can see that we reference current page within this template. So let's go up and add an import for this variable. We're also going to import it from the router module, like this. And now that we no longer fire custom navigate event to the root component, as well as we no longer pass current page prop to the now component, there is no need to have these two directives in here. Let's remove them. Same thing goes with navigate function, because we're no longer calling this function from the app component. The import of this function can also be removed. And if we take a look at the browser and try to click on links within navigation, we can see that we are properly navigated between pages. So our navigation logic works as before. And now if we select the timeline component in View DevTools, on the right side we can see that one of the props that this component accepts is current page prop, which holds current page name. And if we take a look at the timeline component implementation, we will see that here we use watch post effect function, and inside of the closure to this function, we are referencing that current page prop. And this part of code is responsible for scrolling the page to the current timeline item every time we are redirected to the timeline page. So as we have seen before, current page gets passed within this component as a prop called current page. But we will no longer pass this prop to the timeline component. Let's firstly remove this prop from here inside of the app component. And of course, prop declaration within the timeline component is no longer needed. We will remove this declaration, along with the function isPageValid, which was previously used to validate that current page prop. So now we will not reference any props directly within the script section of this component, so we don't need to assign these props to the props constant. And what we're gonna do instead is we will import current page constant from the router module in here. And in that place where we were referencing current page via props object, we need to change this part and reference current page by using value property, since current page variable is reactive. So let's make sure that after initial page load will be automatically scrolled to current timeline item. And as we can see, it is working fine. And now one more little thing that we're gonna do in this lesson is we're gonna go inside of router.js module, and inside of this navigate function, since these two conditional blocks are mutually exclusive, we can combine these two blocks into one by using else if statement like this. And this is it for this lesson. And what we have done is we have actually imported routing logic into those components that need to run the code to navigate to a different page. So now every time we need to navigate to a different page, we no longer need to notify root component by firing custom event so that it needs to do navigation, because now all navigation is fully controlled by the router module. And if any component is gonna need to run the code to navigate to a different page, it can easily import all necessary parts from the router module, such as navigate function responsible for navigation. And then this component can call this function directly to navigate to a different page. The repository link to this project will be, as always, in the video description.